Okay, hey, thanks for joining. We're trying something a little bit different today. I'm going to write a few things out for you. Today we're talking about money psychology or cash flow mastery, right? And stick around for the end. We have a discounted product for you, one of our ebooks, all about cash flow mastery in business specifically. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Cash flow mastery, economics, healthy revenue, right, for a business is super critical, but it has to start with one thing. In my experience, I've grown up without any money in a poor family where, I had two working class parents, middle class, both having to work to support 6 children in the family, and I was the youngest. So you don't get a lot of cash flow to spare in an environment like that. So you have to make a decision. It's about, making or generating, I should say, healthy cash flow is not necessarily about working hard. Sure, that's probably where you start, but the first thing that you need to get on point with is my first point is mindset. I think that's so critical. I think you have to get that right first. I remember my father used to say to me, son, just keep your head under the radar and everything will be okay. Don't attract any attention, things like that. Really scarcity focused communications from my parents, right? So, you need to be very careful and reset that. Like I had to hard set that when I was young. So I grew up in a very poor household and poor environment. I'd be working, I was an ex-musician, so I was playing gigs at night and working during the day, in some cases 2 to 3 jobs, right? And I was doing construction, I was working in a warehouse, I did whatever I could get my hands on, working for my dad's company. And he had a company, right? And he owned his own house and all that, but we were poor. Like people think that, oh, he must be doing okay. Back then, we're talking about in the 1800s. That was a joke. It was relatively tough. It's different than it is now. I always think now in 2025, there's more opportunity on the planet for people to start businesses than there ever has been in the history of commercial business, right? I think it's so easy now. But one of the things you have to think about is mindset. Just really recalibrating that about what it's all about. So if I was to think about mindset and to recalibrate that and what I call myself as hard setting how I view the world, what I'm talking about is economics. And that's money, right? Now, the underlying truth about money is probably not what you think it is. There's a lot of communication and a lot of negativity around it. It's got a stigma attached to it, right? Where people say things like this, I don't need money to be happy, or it's not about the money. I don't do it for the money. What I say in response to that, or what I think more importantly, is that we live on an economic planet. It requires healthy economic management. It's irresponsible not to do that, especially if it's not just about you. If you have a family to support and a wife to care for, and a community to contribute to, and we live on an economic planet, guess how you contribute is by maintaining healthy economics. What is economics? Money. It's cash flow. Right. If you're running a business and you don't understand the benefits and how to use and manage money, you'll go out of business and it'll happen pretty quickly. If you go back a couple of episodes, I ran through some numbers with the US Bureau about the amount of businesses that get registered in the United States and fail within 1, 3, 5, and 10-year period. And what I learned from that data is that the longer you're in business, the higher the conversion rate for you to fail. So, healthy economics and having the right mindset around money for your business is critically important. All right, so number 3 on the list for me, and I've spoken about this before, is management. So, when you have the framework for it, who's going to manage it, right? Who's going to manage, this is for your business, who's going to manage the P&L, right? The accounts, sales, and marketing. By the way, all directly connected to this little sucker here. All right. because this is what generates the revenue for your business. Short, medium, or long term. The P&L will have all your costs associated in there, all your cost centers broken down. You'll have your bank accounts that you need to manage. You'll have a sales function and a sales deal flow, and you'll have marketing to generate the interest for your product or service, right? Who's going to do that? So healthy economics is going to be critical on certain points of leverage for your business to ensure that cash flow is in your business, right? So I'm going to put that as number 4, because I think this is something that is misunderstood. Cash flow. You need to understand how fast it comes in, what payment platforms that it will sit in, like Stripe, how long will it be in there for on average. If you're paying commissions to people, you need to know how to manage that so your cash flow is live. It's not reactive. But what I mean by that is you don't want to be issuing cash flow to people inside your company, whether they're third party or employees, when you haven't received the money, right? That'll create insolvency, is where you're starting then to borrow money against other elements of cash flow in the business that should be allocated somewhere else, right? It's a pretty dangerous place to be in. Like if you're taking money out of your 401k, your superannuation fund to pay your wages, that is a huge red flag. And that's a sign that you're moving in the wrong direction. It's because you've got unhealthy economics, poor management of your cash flow. Like, it's so critical to get that right. So I look at my daily bank balance, all the time, 3 or 4 times a day. When we have a sale come into the company, one of our companies, it gets posted on a platform. It gets written on a board. You walk past the screen or the monitor every day. It's on a huge television inside our sales area, so you can just walk up to it and see at any stage where that company, where that brand is at in terms of sales flow, in terms of cash flow. Now that's called managing it, right? I'm going to put in management dashboards. But there's one thing that I like, it's a good dashboard, because dashboards make things transparent, right? You can only manage what you can measure. Right? You can only manage what you can measure. You probably heard that before. It's so critical to get that right. If you can't see it, you're not aware of it, you cannot manage it. And then what happens, it's going to sneak up on you and stab you in the chest with a switchblade or a sword. Right? So you don't want that. You want to have really, really good management, like get it really stuck into that niche. Understand the economics of the market, the business, the country you live in, what the market capitalization is, how big is it, what's your percentage going to be, and then when you start generating cash flow, that cash comes into a trading account. It has to all go into the one account. You have to have all your cash flow go into your trading account, and then you should disperse it. So my 5th thing is cash flow management. Okay. So once you've created cash flow, getting your mindset right, understanding where you need to be, looking at the economics of your market, getting your management levers in place, dashboard, sales, marketing, cash flow starts coming into the business, whether it's recurring revenue, whether it's just through one-on-one sales, right? Whether they're contracts, which is great. Is it e-com? Right? So whatever you're doing to generate your cash flow, when it comes into your trading account, you have to manage it. Now I'm talking about disbursements. I've got this funny feeling I just spelled disbursements wrong. When I spell something wrong, I normally write it quite messy so no one can really see it, and they go, what does that say? But it's because, oh shit, how do you spell that word? That's a trick for you kids that are watching. So cash flow management disbursements is the first thing I go to. So I have an OPEX first rule, right? OPEX first. That's a rule I've lived by, and it works, kids. And I'll tell you why it works. Because what it does, it prohibits you from spending money that you don't own. It prohibits you from spending money you don't own. So in one of my companies, which turns over millions of dollars, it is cash positive always. It's very rarely in debt. So there's always cash in the accounts. always cash in the accounts, and we don't owe anyone any money. Every week, for every invoice that comes to this business, gets paid every week, back to zero. So that's not quite OPEX, right? So if you look at operational expenditure to underpin and run a business, so we're talking about operating expenses, right? So you have standing charges. I'll write this down. This is pretty important. You'll have standing charges, and then you'll have operating charges. Now, these are two different things. One, two. They're two different things. You need to really, really get your head around this. So if I was to manage my cash flow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up accounts, right? I'm going to put this over here, accounts. So we're talking about bank accounts. So you would have a trading account. So your cash flow, put a little dotted line, goes into your trading account. Goes into one place. What happens? Well, your bookkeeper gets hold of that, your accountant gets hold of that, you run your statements from that and manages all your sales. You plug your automation into whatever platform you're using to manage your finances. We use Xero, so that talks directly to our trading account and all of our other accounts. But every single payment that comes into the business, our cash flow, is managed by one account and one account only, ever. It is never managed by more than one. Right, so when it goes in there, what I do is I segment out into different accounts. So for one company, we probably have about 23 accounts, I think it is. So what are those accounts? It's called 401k, right? So super, that's one account. We'll have PAYG, tax, and any other sort of tax reliability to the tax man will go into another account, right? Wages. So I will forecast out my wages for each quarter, and I want to ensure that I have at least 12 months worth of wages already paid for in the business. That's how I do it, right? Now, you have to earn it, right? You have to earn it at the start of the business. Because imagine if something went wrong in your business, and this is what happens to businesses all the time. This is so, business 101, is that they don't have enough cash flow management, right? They can generate sales, but they don't know how to manage the cash in the business. Salespeople are orientated to spend cash flow on marketing and sales and staff, but what they forget is they need to forward estimate their cash flow, right? So I want to have all my super paid for in advance. So if you pay it quarterly, you need to be 1 quarter in advance. You need to have all your tax paid for. You pay the tax man first, you pay yourself second, right? This is not a profit first model, by the way, which some companies do operate. I don't like that model because I don't feel like I should pay myself until everyone else has been paid. That's just how I see it. So I've got everything covered. I've got insurances and wages. I've got lease, rent. I've got a tech account, right? And then we have third-party suppliers, and off the trading account, I have all these sub-accounts. So as soon as the cash flow comes in, what I do is I manage it through disbursements from the trading account into all these other accounts. And what happens then? You create security for the business. Because if I'm 1 year ahead on my wages and something happens and sales go down, no harm, no foul, I'll be okay. But if you're bootstrapping and running what I call one-on-one, that strategy doesn't normally work, because if you get hit and something happens to the business, you can't pay your wages. If you have 4 weeks worth of wages propped to support that mechanism, you've only got 4 weeks. What happens if sales are down for 6 weeks? So, and then that creates stress on the business, and then you have to pull other levers like these things, which shake the business, and then revenue goes down overall or across the board, right? So these are probably the most critical things. The management of sales to generate cash flow, understanding what the cash flow looks like. Is it reoccurring? Is it contractual? Is it one-on-one sales that's being leveraged from marketing lead acquisition? When you get the cash flow into the trading account, all goes into one. All your reporting will go through your software into that account, and then the disbursement will underpin your standing charges and your operating expenses. Let me just quickly go back to that. An operating expense is something you incur when the business is operating. A standing charge will be there forever if your doors are closed. Like lease is one of those things. Insurance is one of those things, right? So that has to be paid whether you generate revenue or you're operating or selling or not. So I like to break them into a couple of different categories. And my strategy here is, if it's a standing charge, the reason why my account will go into negative at any given time, if sales are down, I'm heavily leveraged on standing charges that have to be paid. These are all standing charges for me. Like, I still have to pay all my software bills when the company's closed over Christmas for 2 weeks. Like, that just has to happen, right? So, and what will happen is you need to forecast annually your peaks and troughs for sales and your peaks and troughs for operating expenses. That's when the doors are closed. Do you have sufficient money, cash flow, in your sub accounts, operating off your trading accounts to cover this? Do you? Man, that is so critical. Like, if you want to build a successful company, now I understand that if you're creative, having a great product, having a great service, deploying it well, having great ads and all that sort of stuff is part of running a company. I get it. But if you don't know this, you'll go out of business. You will just go out of business. So if you don't know how to do it, bring on a co-founder that does. If you don't know how to do it, employ someone that does. If you don't know how to do it, find a good accountant that does. Because without that, you're going to be in trouble. Stick around till the end and get hold of our business, finance, money, mastery ebook. And the link will be in the description. Higher frequency instead of lower frequency for me. What it means to the P&L, you're closer to sales, you're closer to the trading account, because you can see deal flow happening off the back of cash flow entering the trading account, right? You just can't. Like, you don't need to understand what they've sold, because if you're the founder, the CEO or the director, you have access to the accounts, right? So you can just see it. So staying integrally connected to that. My advice is don't overreact to it, but you'll understand organic ups and downs and ebbs and flows with cash flow into your business. And you kind of need to manage your strategy around that, right? So the next thing I want to talk about, number 6, is strategy. A very misunderstood word. And what I find with strategy, that people who work in different sectors of a business, from sales to marketing to operations to finance or whatever it may be, all think that strategy is something slightly different for them. In fact, I actually think it's not. If I was to think of strategy, the first thing that comes to my mind is framework. The second thing that comes to my mind is results. And then the third thing is actions. So let's put some categories to these: A, B, and C. All right. So when you're building the strategy for the business, one of the things you obviously have to consider, and this is about cash flow mastery, is when my cash flow comes in the business, identifying it using dashboards to be across it, where it's moving, how fast it moves, and then where you invest it right back into the business. By the way, I always like to work to a 20% ratio of investment. I've said this many times before. So I need to build my business around and maintain my operational expenditure to give me enough cash flow to invest back into the business. 20% is the number, right? So out of every $100, $20 I need to go into an investment account that supports the growth of the business. Because I want to talk about next is scale. So how do you scale the business? If you're turning over the exact same revenue, maintaining operational expenditure, maintaining the same level of sales, you can't grow the business. What normally happens is, especially in startups, is founders will scale sales and marketing, operations start to get hit with the influx of lead increase, right? Or product increase. If it's a service product, they have to manage it. If it's a physical product, they have to distribute it. If it's a SaaS product, you have to maintain it, right? So it requires wages and people to be able to do that. So I always like to say, if I can put 20% aside into an investment account. So when I spoke about your account, an investment account is one of your subset accounts off your trading account, right? And I work to a distribution framework. So I have a spreadsheet. I just do that through a simple spreadsheet. And I have all my master costs in there, and I don't miss anything. And those costs will change maybe from month to month, normally from quarter to quarter. For example, we have a company who provides us with third-party services to manage one of our CRMs. We're transitioning to another CRM, so we're moving to another provider. That provider will fall away. We found a cheaper provider, so I'll update that, which will update the metric or the number that goes into my distribution sheet. The sales that come on for the week, I stick at the top of that sheet. Let me just do this. So sales will be, let's say we did 100K, right? So in my distribution sheet, there sits $100,000 at the top, right? Down here, I'm going to have things like this: rent, wages, insurance. I'm going to have IT. I'm going to have marketing. I might have a Google ad spend and all these sorts of things in there, right? So this is how I do it. And each time I go through every week on the basis of the cash flow, my costs will be calculated in total down here. So this will be my sub. Say my sub is, if it was, say, 112,000. What the sheet tells me is that I'm 12,000 negative, right? We can do that. 12,000 negative. Now, if my sales were 80,000, the sheet shows me, right? The sheet shows me that I'm plus 20,000. So my investment is normally, I've got this to play with. So I've paid all of this, so there's numbers in here. I've allocated it all. If I run a negative, I carry that negative into the next week or the next month, right? So if I'm not and I end up in a positive, well, that's great for reinvestment. So I can move that money into another account, right? So that's sort of how I do it. It's quite an old school way of doing it, but I need to think about scale at some point, right? How do I grow the business? So this is your OpEx right here. This is your OpEx. And it's just ensuring that your sales are in alignment with your costs here. So if I'm turning over $100,000 in sales every week, you want to ensure that at least your operational expenditure is around 30% of that. Maybe in a startup it's 40%, could be 50%, but you'd probably want to stick with 30 if you can handle it. So what that means is you have all this cash flow to cover everything else. And I break these down, like I said, into standing charges and then into operating expenses. And in my sheet, I have them separated out as two different categories with two different colors, right? So I can always make sure. Now, if I can't add money to my investment account because I'm negative, I don't put it in there. So that's sort of my buffer, right? So if I'm ahead of the game, I can top up my investment account. If I'm behind it, it just doesn't get any funds that week. That's sort of how I do it. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go back to strategy. So again, framework, results, actions. So your action should be in line with the company mission, the company goal, what you're looking to achieve, which is also attached to what's your scale strategy, right? So we're looking at 2X, for example, right? A group of businesses from 2025 now to the end of 2026 calendar year. So we can't do that without a strategy. Inside that strategy, framework, results, actions, that formulates a business plan. And in that business plan, you will have an execution strategy. Execution strat, right? So that's what I would normally do. because I'm trying to work to this. I'm trying to scale the business. Right. And you have to have a plan to be able to do that. The plan, if this today's ep is about cash flow mastery, none of this happens without this cash flow management, cash flow mastery, right? And it's quite easy to get to, but you have to learn it. And that means you might need to go and do some courses. You might need to surround yourself with people who are really good at that, instead of hanging out with your dumb friends. That was a joke. Your friends are probably great. If they're not though, you should think about that, because I really had to learn that, because my father didn't teach me that. The friends that I associated myself with at high school, even though they're awesome, they weren't finance majors. They weren't doing finance degrees, economic degrees. So, I had to go and do that myself, put myself through college units and get certified and do all that sort of stuff. And I did a whole bunch of business courses online to learn how to do that. And once you find a system that works, like I found the system probably about 12, 13 years ago, and it transitioned probably 4 or 5 times before I got to this model. And this model has always kept me in the positive. I've never been in the negative, to the point where we've paid our tax bill ahead of schedule. Imagine that, having a company turning over to millions of dollars and you've paid your tax bill ahead of schedule. You're giving them money and they haven't asked for it yet. Now, what does that do for the business? Hey, it creates good security for the business. The tax man certainly likes it, right? And it de-risks the business financially as well, right? So I always like to be in that position. What happens though is it slows down scaling the business, because you're not putting every single cent into scaling the company. Is it a good decision, a bad decision? I don't really know. It probably could be a bad decision. But I like to have a little bit of security around economics, only because we didn't have it when we were kids, and maybe that's where that came from. So that would be my thing. So next I'm on to scaling, number 7. How do you do that? So I'm investing 20% of all cash flow into scaling the business. So what am I going to invest that money in? Well, it's diversification. Diversification of revenue. It's scaling existing revenue, and it could be acquisition. So diversification of revenue. If you've got a channel that's making money, right? SaaS platform, selling particular products, selling t-shirts, whatever it may be, selling courses, whatever it may be, product or service, how can you diversify? And you want to diversify that's something that's related, right? So say if this is, let's call it t-shirts, you're selling t-shirts online. I don't know about t-shirts. I just bought t-shirts online, that's probably why I'm doing this. If this is a t-shirt sphere, don't go sell something over here. It's too far away. Try and use the IP and just move it next door. Like, you don't need to knock the house down and build another level. Build a level on top of it. Now you've got a 2-level house, right? And in the 2-level house, you have more rooms that you can rent out, so it increases your revenue, right? And the people who live on level 1 already know 2 people who can move into level 2. Right, so it's faster to the market. It's just so much closer to you. So my advice is, when you go to diversify revenue, right, to increase cash flow mastery, is that you generate and diversify revenue that's very close to what you already do. Don't go reinventing the goddamn wheel. It's already being done, right? Square wheels do not work. Don't knock down the building you just built and then start to build another one next door. Be very, very careful about that. I see entrepreneurs do it all the time. They're chasing fucking unicorns and building new businesses every 5 minutes. Like, it doesn't work, man. It's distracting, especially when you haven't got your OPEX, your revenue under control, and your cash flow under control. It can be very, very dangerous. So that's number 1, right? Number 2 is, how do you increase your existing revenue? So before you diversify, get your existing revenue on point. So in your strategy to hit your scaling mark, how much is that? Right, so, okay, the existing team needs to go from 10 million to 20 million. Okay, great, how do we do that? Like, why would I diversify starting up another revenue stream when I have to 2x the one I've got? Like, that would be not a great decision. You can do it if you have the right team. If you don't have the right team, you can't do that, because it's so distracting, requires so much focus and energy. You won't always get it right. You'll have to pitch and catch, you'll have to pivot all the time. So, you know, to stay focused on that goal requires focus, all right? So I would increase existing revenue to a point to underpin investment, take the investment, set up an X project, what I call an X project, and diversify revenue generation. But you don't do it in the same house you're building. Keep it at the edge of the company if you can. Use your investment to pay for it, so it doesn't pull down revenue in your existing cash flow from your existing P&L, which affects your distribution here. Like, it just makes sense, right? It's just, you know, you have to learn that though, you know. So I'm gonna go through that one more time. So build your existing revenue off your existing cash flows. Your OpEx should increase if it was to double revenue in alignment with your sales growth. You can't have your sales growth diminish and your cost increase. You'll start to see on your distribution channel a negative number every week or every month or every quarter. That's a sign that something's not balanced or right. Okay. If you want to diversify revenue, which I think you should, which you get from your strategy, your business plan, results, framework, and actions to scale, you take it from your investment account that's already in your initial cash flow distribution channel, right? And you only use that. You set it up as what I call an X project. That's what Google did. Set up X projects on the edge of the company, and you fund it, not from the trading account, but from a different account. And then what it does, it protects this revenue stream, your existing business. It doesn't damage it. And it also means that the people who are running that X project are probably not the people that are inside the business. They may oversee it, but they won't be doing the heavy lifting to distract them from the existing core focus, which is to grow your existing revenue by 2x. Cool. The only other way you could do it is through acquisition, which I've done before and haven't been very successful at. So I've done it 2 times. It was mildly successful, but it wasn't hugely successful. What I didn't understand when I did it is that purchasing another business, it's challenging. There's a whole bunch of HR recruitment issues. Where do you run it? What's its cash flow? The people in the business, are they going to leave? And if they do, are they attached to the performance of that P&L? And what damage will occur? Those are some of the challenges that you'll face with an acquisition, and sometimes you don't really know the truth until you actually acquire the business and you're running it, right? You have to engage consultants. They're quite expensive, about market trends. You have to investigate the balance sheet, the P&L, the accounts. There's a lot of forensics involved in an acquisition. It can be costly and take a long time to do, and then you need someone to be able to run the strategy and execute against its integration into an existing business, or run as a separate P&L, right? It's still quite challenging. It requires a lot of resource. And again, if you're building one level here and you should be building upon it, an acquisition strategy would be the same thing for me. Like, if we purchase for our training brand a recruitment business as an acquisition, it sort of organically becomes congruent, right? Because I always think about lead acquisition. My lead acquisition, if my client would buy this product and buy that product at the same time, that would be the perfect acquisition marriage for me. It's like, don't go buying selling, if you're selling t-shirts, don't go buy a business that sells plants. You might try and find, it might be, you're selling t-shirts, well, the next thing might be hats, other items of clothing, right? I know that sounds really logical and common sense, but common sense is not so fucking common anymore, because I actually see it happen quite frequently. So that would be my thing about scale. Just back to it. Ensure you have your strategy, framework, results, and actions, business plan, and then your execution strategy attached to that. When you scale, keep it as an X project on the side of the company. Use your investment account that you got set up during startup, right? When you were doing your economical management and your cash flow management strategy, that should be in that. Then what you want to do is look at, how do you increase existing revenue? Diversify revenue in the business by keeping it really closely related to what you're selling now. And you might look at acquisition, but again, keep it really closely related to what you're doing right now. And then you'll get IP benefits, and you'll have staff that will understand the product more. It's a little bit easier on the recruitment process and the talent that you'll have, because to sell a t-shirt and a hat, well, it's probably the same process in the back-end marketing strategy. So no harm, no foul. It can be that simple. Cash flow management is super critical to get it right. I think about it all the time. I kind of like talking about it because even doing this session today with you guys, it sort of makes me think about cash flow management. You want to spend a lot of time working on it. Read books about it. I wouldn't get distracted about it too much. The operations also is a really, really important part of the business. It's not always just about revenue generation. I think about product market fit a lot. I think we need to do more work in that space. So cash flow management, we have to have cash flow to manage it, right? So you have to generate revenue. Your sales, marketing channels, ROAS, CPL, all that sort of stuff comes into play. And then but what's more important, you need talent to execute against it. Like, how do you do that? So you have to understand the recruitment infrastructure of the talent that you're looking for. That's the thing I've sort of struggled with, I think, in business, and I've made some pretty poor recruits, which is weird because I used to work in recruitment many years ago, so they didn't teach me a lot. And trust me, there was not a lot of smart people working on that market at the time. But I know a lot more about it now, so I'm very laser focused on talent, not staff, but talent. Like, so what can those people do? And cash flow management is about that as well. Don't always think it's about ones and zeros. It's about balance sheets, operational expenditure, diversification of revenue. Look, it is in its essence and its true form. But to be successful and to maintain it is going to require much more than that. And it's going to require really, really good quality talent, especially if you're looking to scale. I've seen businesses scale really successfully, not because they knew what they were doing, but they just knew how to recruit the right people and where to find them. It was. I think it's that important right now in the growth of any business. Certainly, as we go through exponential change with AI technologies and how that's going to impact businesses. Right. I was in the lift today listening to a couple of people. They were finance people actually, who work for I think the insurance company they work for is a multi-billion-dollar company in Australia, and they were talking about their point of sale system, and I was just sitting there listening to them, thinking, God, you know what? In probably about 2 or 3 years, that conversation will be managed with an AI. Like, it just won't be done. It won't be done with two humans trying to figure it out. So as you build your business and as you grow your balance sheet and you start to generate revenue and things start to look really, really good, you need to think quite far into the future, right? Whether it be an exit strategy, whether it be a scaling strategy, bringing on a co-founder, diversification of product and service, diversification of revenue, whatever it may be. I think you need to consider artificial intelligence and how you're going to apply that to the future of your business. And I think it's going to happen soon. So you'd want to be prioritizing that. So when I'm talking about diversification of revenue, even though yes, you can set up other products, yes, you can sell those products, but how can you increase revenue dramatically by using technologies, by just simply being more efficient, right? So that's something I'm super focused on right now. Super pumped and happy about being in that place right now, because I think it's time. I think the technology is there. It's not quite there. I think one thing that will underpin its restriction is energy. But I think, with some of the moves and investment that are happening from the Middle East through China and through the US and Australia, I think those things are going to change, right? And when it does, business will be, the framework of business will change. And who knows where cryptocurrency is going to go, right? Who knows what's going to happen there? But so the last thing I'll close on, and I'm not even going to give this a number. I'm just going to call it maintain. I think you need to go into maintenance mode across many things. If I was to think about, generating revenue, there's one thing that I think you need to, as a founder, that you need to stay on top on, right? And that's your mindset. So we started with that, right? So the way that you view your business now will be different to where you view it when it's generating tens of millions of dollars, right? It just will be. It'll change normally when you're running to 1 million. This is from my experience, by the way. This is not set in concrete. 3 million, right? You're going to get to 5 to 7 million, and then 10 million. And then it all goes up and to the right, right? This here, this line is probably where things can dramatically change. Like, this is hard work. Getting 1 to 10, that's really hard work. And you know, you're going to be everybody in that space. You know, this could be anything from, I was going to say with AI, you know, that would be, Jesus, that would be 50 people. Now it's probably 15, right? So that could be anything from 5, 10 people, 20 people, and maybe 25 people. That's sort of where I think it sits now in 2025, right? So inside that, so if you look at 25 people, inside that, you're probably going to have 5 leaders, right? Make sure you recruit the right people here. So critical, because that's what will make that curve easier. But what I talk about as mindset is that to get through, that's quite challenging, right? So you have to keep your mindset on point, and it's just going to change through, I think, these financial cycles. So if today was about money mastery, right? Money is great, but can also be really, really bad if you don't understand the cycle of it. And I'm talking about maybe psychologically as a business owner and a founder, that sometimes it's not just about the money. Like if you're crowded in this mindset space and you're unfocused, it can really hinder the growth of a business. And I've seen it, right? It can end a business, and it can also build an amazing business if you have that element right. So you want to consider that, and that is about maintenance. You need to maintain that. And I think when you start to get to the center of the sphere here, so 3 to 7 million, the pressure starts to, like, this is fun. Running to 3 million, and I've done that a few times in a really short period of time. I could take a company to 3 million in 12 to 18 months because I know how to run fast and break things. But when you get here, it just becomes a little bit more complex, right? Because there's more money in play. And what happens when you generate more income, you get more distraction. You know, you just do. There's more responsibility, there's more distraction. You get the hunger to get past this mark here, the 10 million mark, so you can go to here, like 25, 50, 100. So that's sort of the growth of it all, right? Is to sort of do that if you wanted to. But if you're building your cash flow mastery strategy, is that where you want to go? 100 million? I don't know. You kind of have to think about that, right? I never really did that at the start. I normally just sort of dive in first and figure the rest out later. That's a strategy. It works. I kind of like it. It works for me. That's sort of who I am. But it doesn't work for everybody. So in a maintenance strategy, I'm talking about human maintenance. Your maintenance is to get your mindset on point and keep it fresh, and just realize there's certain sort of maybe mindset shifts or paradigm shifts, you could call them, through this. You know, AI is certainly going to be one of those shifts where instead of running at revenue, you're having it come to you. So instead of kicking the door down, which I'm pretty good at, walk up to the door and just kick the shit out of it, or you could train the AI to open the door and let everything walk through for you. So I think there's a bit of a paradigm shift happening with business ownership now, especially at our level. Like, we're not Deloitte's, you know, we're not a $100 billion company. But those are the challenges that sort of we're facing at the moment. So maintenance, maintain. You have to maintain your cash flow, and it needs to be healthy. I think about health. Cash flow health is the term I use. What's healthy? You've got cash in the business, so if something goes wrong, you can maintain the company for X period of time. I don't know what that is for your business, but you should work that into your business plan. Because I tell you what, when you have no money in the business, fuck, it gets really hard, and the first thing tends to fall over, and then the company's done. Right, so these are all interconnected, by the way. So cash flow health is, do I have enough money in the bank to be able to sustain and maintain the business if something goes wrong? And if you're a founder, you go to bed with that at night. You carry that with you, man. It's like a gorilla on your back, and it's a big boy, and he's constantly punching you in the face. So, you know, you just need to, these things are so connected, it's crazy, but you need to maintain that, right? The other thing you need to maintain is your focus. So outside of the cash flow component, we're talking about mindset. Cash flow health is attached to that. Focus is an element of mindset that promotes cash flow. because cash flow diminishes when you get distracted and you're doing things you shouldn't do. Boom. It's that simple. Focus. Like like I said before in the strategy, if the strategy was to 2x your existing revenue stream, you can't do anything else. You just can't. You can't build 3 other businesses and 2x your revenue stream. Like, it's just not, unless you've got shitloads of money and you can employ teams and teams of people. But even then, if you're the person who's directing that, it's going to upset your mindset. It's going to shake your focus, and things start to go wrong. And the reason why I look at the accounts so frequently is because it tells me the cash flow health of the business is attached to everything. So that's why I look at it. I just know where things are at. Like, I can just feel it in my bones, as they say. Is that a thing? I think people used to say that. They probably don't say that anymore. And the last thing is, do this. Man, have some fun. Well, I think business is creative. That's why I like it. I'm a creative person by nature. Being an ex-musician, and I just think it has to be fun. I think if you were to maintain your mindset, cash flow health, be super focused, to do all the things that I think healthy cash flow management is all about, is that you should have a bit of fun in the process. It's not always going to be fun. You don't want to have fun when the business is losing. There's no time for fun then. Like, you got to get focused and get to work. But how good does it feel when you're succeeding? Like, how good does it feel when you have a great week, a great month, a great quarter? When you win a quarter, how good does it feel? It feels great. What happens when you lose a quarter? Having fun in a down market, it's just counterintuitive. It's about accepting what's going wrong, facing it head on, and then punching it in the face. Like, you have to attack it, right? If you don't attack it, things just don't work out that well. It's okay if you want to chase unicorns through the forest and pick daisies, but the problem's still going to be there when you finish doing that, right? So you just sort of have to face those things head on. So the maintenance of your mindset is, I think, super critical. So thanks for joining today. Look, if you want to learn more, go to lawrencemackey.com. That's Lawrence Mackey, MACKEY.com, and you'll find a money mastery ebook there that I've written. It's only $19. It's well worth it. There's so much information out there. And like I said, education doesn't need to be expensive, right? So we're trying to create a whole bunch of small educational pieces of content for people that is affordable, all right, that you can put into your budget. So I highly advise you go check it out, lawrencemackey.com, Money Mastery ebook for $19. I appreciate you joining today, and we'll see you on the next episode.